Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Harvard House studio and our online event. I trust you've got your snacks and your drinks, your JC LaRue's ready. Hopefully, you've only just opened your box now. You're not doing it earlier and you haven't tucked into any of those goodies yet. We'll check on that. But we really hope that you will enjoy us this evening. We've got a bit of fun lined up and hopefully one or two surprises along the way. We have muted you all. If you're not muted, please make sure that you are muted. Otherwise, somebody else or the whole party will hear you asking your neighbor to pass you your snacks. So I trust you've all enjoyed your party pack that has been delivered to you. We've had some fantastic emails and responses from people. And I thought that we would start by just showing you a little bit of behind the scenes as to how those were packed and put together. So Claire, my magnificent assistant, is going to run that video. Thank you, Claire.
This is high grade.
So ladies and gents, hopefully you saw a little bit of how that was all put together and who tied the ribbon. You might see in one of the pictures, there is a group of Harvard House staff who are celebrating with us. They're in our new boardroom of our newly renovated front entrance. I trust they're waving at you madly at the moment and saying hello, and they joined the party with you, and they're having their own little party down there. They will be with us for the duration of the evening, and we'll be hearing from some of them a little bit later. So we want to start with a video just talking a little bit about the history of Harvard House. And so I'm going to ask Claire to flight the next video for us. Thank you, Claire.
My name is Robin Gibson. I'm the marketing director of Harvard House, but I work into multiple aspects of the company. Harvard House is an integrated financial services company that deals with the multiple facets of a client's financial life, wills and estates, tax and accounting, financial planning, investment, short-term insurance. And we really consider ourselves to be caring, loyal, and exceptional value for money. So Harvard House started in 1972 when Nigel Porter left Durban to join his brother and Jeremy Cook in a business called Cook, Porter and Co. And Nigel was the co. And the idea was he was going to open up the Howick operation. I think obviously Nigel had to establish a reputation and build a client base, which was probably not easy to do in those early days. Howick was largely dust streets back then. I think there was only one tar street. There certainly wasn't any traffic lights, so it was certainly rural living of note. So Nigel established this incredible culture of personal service. Many of his clients were his friends, and that really comes with being in a very small community. When you live in a rural area and the community is small, you do get to know everybody, and the level of service is really what differentiates you from someone going, say, into a bigger city to get the same services. Essentially, they were an accounting practice, and Nigel was a trained accountant, but he and his brother had a great interest in the stock market, and so that grew in that space, and that grew into Harvard House over the last 50 years. So we've always looked at technology to enhance what we do, and really for what makes the difference for the client, not necessarily looks snazzy compared to our competitors. We've had to adjust many of the ways that we do things, and that's been in terms of how we interact with our clients, how we employ our staff, because we really believe that the important part for the client is what you're doing with their money, how you're interacting with them. And it doesn't matter how much technology grows, human beings are still the same, and they want to be treated like individuals. Probably a key turning point for us was when Fidelity Bank went into curatorship, and it was probably the biggest storm that the company weathered, but we came through well. The loss of Ron Perbrick as a partner opened the door to some younger partners coming in who had dreams and visions to go a little bit further, and so started to build this financial services practice. And then when Michael and Willie joined on the asset management side, and we became much more intentional on the asset management side, and subsequently launched unit trusts, and then won some national awards. And from there, the die was set, and really just we powered on from there.
So I'm sure by now you have dug well into your snacks. I'm not sure whether it's toffees first or fudge, but hopefully you're enjoying it, whatever it is. What I want to do now is I want to take the time. We had a lot of people write to us and thank us for the boxes that we received. But one of our clients, Jan Esprit, who lives on the South Coast, took the time to sit down and write a poem related to her gift box that arrived. And I'd like to read that poem to you. I think it's a fantastic piece of prose, and I'm sure you will enjoy it as much as we did. Harvard House 50th birthday gift pack. The courier guy was here today. I just got home, I'm pleased to say. And so I made a pot of tea and settled in my chair to see what was inside that giant box. Too large for just some Christmas socks. The bow was tied so beautifully. Thank you, whoever did that for me. I'd been feeling low for quite a while, searching to find my usual smile. But as I saw my HH gift, I truly felt my spirits lift. What unexpected treasures there, each showing just how much you care. Excitedly and with great surprise, I could simply not believe my eyes. A party pack of goodies fine, on fudge and toffees I shall dine. J.C. LaRue will join me too, to celebrate along with you. Techno toys are also there, and lemon-scented soap, my dear. Eucalyptus oil, now that's just fine, and in sanitizer, it's divine. The bright green pen will suit me well. Where my others end up, I cannot tell. And that glacier bag is way too cool. Towel, book, and sunblock by the pool. The lip balm and the tissue oil, those wrinkles and my age might foil. And so I do not lose my keys. I'll use that lanyard, if you please. Thanks Harvard House, yes, one and all, for making me feel 10 foot tall. Your integrity banishes all my fears, and I celebrate your 50 years. Thank you, Jan. What a wonderful piece of prose, and I hope you enjoyed it as much as we did here in the office. I'm going to ask Claire to flight the next video, which is really about more where we are at the moment as a firm. Thank you, Claire.
I'm Pete Smith, and I'm the Chief Executive Officer of Harvard House. Harvard House is a fully fledged financial services group. We offer a full range of financial services, including investments, financial planning, short-term insurance, administration of deceased estates, and accounting and taxation. Harvard House has 66 staff members presently. We're based in Howick, but we have clients right across the country: Johannesburg, Cape Town, Durban, and wider field. So I think that speaks for our service, it speaks for our professionalism. For us, every client is individual. Every client has unique and individual needs. We really focus on understanding exactly what it is they require and then tailoring a very personalized solution for their needs.
My name is Nigel Porter. I'm a director of the company. I'm the Chief Investment Officer responsible for the asset management team. We invest in good quality companies that have strong businesses, that generate strong cash flows. We build diversified portfolios. We don't rely too much on one company. We have diversification both across SA and globally. COVID caused huge panic across clients and staff, as can be expected. No one has lived through a pandemic before. It was new. No one knew what to expect or how it was going to unfold. But we've drawn all our experience and all our history and knowledge to know that crises generally follow a similar pattern. I think one of our biggest challenges during COVID was to walk with clients and to persuade them and to try and convince them that times of crises are not the times to change your investment strategy. Those clients that had the courage to stick it out have been rewarded significantly over the last 18 months.
So COVID-19 had a significant impact on our business, as it did most businesses, to be honest. And we were very fortunate. We never had to retrench anyone. We never cut any salaries. We had built significant reserves, which helped us through that time, which was always part of our strategy of sustainable business. I think we've learned a lot through it as well, just in terms of the benefits of a balance of work from home, work from office. So I think we've taken the positives out of it, but it certainly had a massive impact on us. Probably our major investment from a social responsibility perspective is an incredible organization called Singakwenza, who have a focus on early childhood development. Many of our directors serve on boards voluntarily, school boards, hospice again, and then we do make donations to other organizations ad hoc. So we do have a heart for the community, and we see it as a privilege to be part of this community.
So no celebration of Harvard House in 50 years would be appropriate if we didn't spend some time on its founder, Nigel Porter. In order to do that, what we did was we approached a man called Cuba Ikageng, who is known as the storyteller. And we asked Cuba to interview Nigel. We spent a day with him and Mel at his premises in Miller Street. And this is just a small extract. Obviously, 50 years can hardly be summed up in 10 minutes. But hopefully this will give us some of the highlights from those very early days and a little bit of the picture that Mel and Nigel walked through in building Harvard House over the last 50 years. Thank you, Claire.
Harvard House Group has been in existence for 50 successful, brilliant years. And today I have the pleasure of talking to the man that started it all, Nigel Porter. My name is Makubalo, the storyteller.
Thank you.
Tell us about the early days.
And I was born in Pietermaritzburg and stayed in Pietermaritzburg until I had finished my chartered accountancy qualification. And I qualified in August 1969 as a chartered accountant. So went to London for a year to gain some experience and came back to Natal, where I got this job with Grindrod's. My wife and I came up to Pietermaritzburg to my parents' home on the 23rd of December 1970. where my parents held a Christmas cocktail party. And at that cocktail party, I was asked if I knew anybody who could look after an accounting practice in Howick for 2 weeks. Because the chartered accountant who ran that practice had just left at 24 hours notice for his own particular reasons. And so I told them that I would come for 2 weeks. Born and bred in Pietermaritzburg all my life, schooled at Belgaum. The Natal Midlands was has been my home all my life. I felt comfortable here.
What were the earliest promises that you made your clients? What were you telling them?
My first 2 clients had 3 years tax returns outstanding. Not 1, 3. So I had to do 3 years for each of them, so they weren't in trouble with SARS. And that was the measure of their interest, that I got them out of trouble with SARS. You have to be honest, and you have to gain their trust. And once you've done that, then I think that is the absolute #1 fundamental milestone. And where money is concerned, I think that is the single most vital factor of all, because there are far, far, far too many instances worldwide, from Argentina to Japan, of people who are just not trustworthy with money.
Nigel, he was always a mad keen financier, but never a big city boy. So it was always a case of he wanted to make a difference to individual people, and this was the right place for us to be. And it was the most wonderful place for the children to grow up. In the early days, as I said, the clients became friends. As they became friends, we entertained them. We didn't have television in those days. There was a lot more entertainment that went on, and dinner parties were just a regular part of life. And we built up the practice on these wonderful friendships with clients that became long-lasting friends and remain so to this day.
What was happening? What were the challenges?
I was a 27-year-old accountant. I was totally unknown. My wife helped with the typing. She rented an office at 10 rand a month, and we had 2 chairs. I sat in one chair and my wife sat in the other chair and typed on the other side of my desk. When we had a client, my wife had to go and read a book in the toilet because there was no other seat to sit on. The defining moment came when I phoned my friend Ronald Fabric, who was working for a firm of accountants in Durban. And I said, I can't do this on my own. I can't have an hour out of the office, let alone a day, because there is nobody else. And the clients, if they want to see a person, there is nobody else but me. And the defining moment was when he agreed to leave the firm of accountants who employed him in Durban, and he came and joined me in Howick.
The minute that Ron joined the practice, it started to flourish. We went from strength to strength. Ron was the most wonderful asset to the firm. His skills set was completely different to Nigel's. His temperament was different. They were really very suitably partnered. And from there, it just blossomed.
Tell us about Harvard House, the house. Tell us that history and what happened throughout the years.
Norton and Snither were one of the bigger businesses in Howick at the time. They wanted to buy the bit of land, that house, because they wanted to expand their depot. And we bought it before they realized that we were bidding for it. But we'd been in the house for 10 years maybe. And we went to a wedding out in the Dargle. And I sat on a hay bale next to a chap that I'd never seen in my life before. So what do? You introduce yourself. Hi, I'm Nigel Porter. Who are you? Oh, I'm Lowell O'Shea. What do you do? Oh, I'm an architect. Are you? I'm just thinking of knocking down a house and putting up a building. Fantastic. I'll design it for you. So at the end of the wedding, we had found an architect.
Yeah.
I mean, we were just guests at the wedding. On the Monday morning, we got together and we started designing the current Harvard House, and knocked down the old building.
And the architecture of it is quite, it was quite modern for the time, I imagine.
He worked for a firm called Stuckey Harrison, which had offices in Johannesburg, Durban, Cape Town. It was a big operation. And he was a very good architect.
What were the main challenges for you and Harvard House throughout the years? What were the major milestones that you felt, or no, these were threatening the company or presenting difficulties?
Well, the single most defining moment was unquestionably the death of my dear friend, Ron Peverick. It was 100% unexpected. He and I had a discussion on the finances of the business on the Friday night. We stayed late at the office to discuss one or two items. On Saturday morning, he went to Sakabula golf course to play golf with his family. And he hit his ball off the tee and dropped down dead on the tee. I think the second most important moment for me was when inflation hit between 20 and 25% in South Africa. Your salary was halving in purchasing power every 3 years. And we had to give staff salary increases every 6 months, or they were threatening to resign. We had clients' money in savings accounts with Fidelity, and Fidelity went into liquidation. But that wasn't a reflection on Harvard House. Harvard House was totally honest. But it was a bad moment. A client phoned me at 8 o'clock that morning and said he had bought a truck and he needed 100,000 rands to pay for the truck. And I said, fine, come at 11 o'clock and I'll give you a check. They went into liquidation at 9 o'clock, and when he arrived at 11 o'clock to get his check, I couldn't give it to him. He was not a happy chap, I can assure you. My wife. She supported me every inch of the way. And even when she was pregnant in the very early days, she would still pitch up for typing. She, when we had 2 small children, she would still come to the office where necessary to assist where there was a gap. And she has never complained at the amount of work that I have brought home over 50 years. She says jokingly sometimes that I worked every night of our married life unless she arranged something different for us to do.
What do you do with your time today? Like, what are you involved with?
We work for charity. And we have a social life with, I mean, we know so many people in the village, it's hard to keep up with them all. But I mean, our basic fundamental on a daily basis is to work for charity and to put back into the community what the community has given to us over 7 years.
It's been an amazing conversation. Thank you so much for sharing your time with us. Thank you.
I trust you enjoyed that fairly short but interesting history into some of the passage that Nigel and Mel had in building the practice over the last 50 years. As a staff, we spent some time at a cocktail party and we interviewed Nigel and Mel in a little bit more depth on some of the additional stories, and it was a great time of celebration earlier this year. When we invited you to our celebration virtually, we indicated that we hoped that we might have a special guest to join us on the event. Unfortunately, the guest that we had hoped to have live was going to be in New York at the time of the event. We were really concerned, willing though he was to connect with us from New York. We were really concerned that technology being what it is, great when it works, we really didn't want to have dead air and be disappointed. So what we did was we actually pre-recorded our interview with this individual. Now, many of you may know David Shapiro. David Shapiro is known as a doyen of the investment markets. You probably have heard him on East Coast Radio for many years, giving a market update. If you followed any form of markets, David Shapiro is interviewed often and widely, and he speaks amazingly. The incredible thing is that David Shapiro started his career in the markets on exactly the same day that Nigel started Harvard House. So we shared a common beginning. In addition to that, both Willie and Michael have walked a road with David and worked with him in the early years of their careers. And so we thought it was really fitting for Michael to get engaged and talk to David about his career and his celebration. So we really hope that you'll enjoy this very special, somewhat different to what the rest of the market has put out in terms of celebrating David Shapiro's 50 years and our unique take on that in our co-celebration. Thank you, Claire.
Hello to our viewers and welcome to another snippet from Harvard House. Today we are extremely honored to be joined by David Shapiro. David is a household name in South African investment markets and, like Harvard House, is celebrating his 50 years in the industry. So David started his career on the 1st of February 1972, exactly the same day that we opened our doors at Harvard House. So first of all, David, huge congratulations on reaching this milestone. It's actually a fantastic achievement and probably one that won't be emulated by many people if you consider how people move around these days. But this is also a special moment for me because David was one of my mentors in my early years when I worked in Joburg before joining Harvard House. And David, you were influential in my growth as an asset manager. So it's a real privilege to have you here. I, like so many people, owe you a huge debt of gratitude. So it's a real privilege to have you here. So maybe we can just kick off. So to start, David, I believe that your dad, Archie, was in the industry for 64 years or something like that, and he retired when the JSE deregulated. Was it always a fait accompli that you would join the markets? Did you ever consider another career?
Yeah, I had no intentions of joining the stock market. I loved, when I was at varsity, I loved to play soccer. I actually reached high levels there. I was in the first squad. And I think my deep love was actually architecture and art. You know, to this day, I still draw. But, yeah, I did accountancy as a fallback. I was quite good at I hated auditing, but I was very good at accounts and tax and everything. And then I entered the JSE as a runner. I think my older brother Harold was a lot more involved in the market than I was. And I still got some of his textbooks today, which include point and figure charting, things like that. Yeah. So we go back all that way where we had to do our charts by hand every day. But Michael, to be honest, I grew into it. And I loved the floor because I learned a lot on the floor. It was like being thrown into literally a food market or a Billingsgate fish market, you know, any of those markets. Yeah. You learn about trade, you learn about people. And, you know, from then, the longer I stayed, the more I began to like what I was doing and get involved with and it's not a science. It's much more, I don't know how you explain. It's more psychological. Markets take years and years to understand, and then you never understand them, you know. Even now, I have no idea what's going to happen tomorrow. Absolutely no idea.
Well, that's very reassuring. Yeah, I mean, just as a side comment, I mean, when I was a kid, I was sitting in my dad's study doing point and figure charts by hand too. So, yeah, the old habits die hard.
You understand what they are.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because there's not a lot of youngsters who understand. You know, today they go on a computer and say, don't like that chart. It's not really reflecting what I think it should be doing. And then they find a chart that actually reflects their sentiment. Whereas in those days, you couldn't crib, you know.
Yeah. You had to do
what
it.
you saw was what you got, yeah.
Exactly. Old school. Old school. So, David, I mean, over your career, you've seen so many changes. I mean, obviously, you know, just a simple anecdotal one is like the fax came and went. You know, it was such a big invention, and now it's consigned to the history books. So, obviously, the biggest probably in your career was the deregulation of the JSE, moving away from the floor to screen trading. Did you consider throwing in the towel at that stage and saying, "Oh, well, it's all changing; it's not for me," or did that just energize you and you know, get you more excited about the markets?
I love technology. In fact, when I qualified, soon after qualified, I went back to WITS and I did what was called then an HDIP DDP, which was a higher diploma in business data processing. I wanted to learn how to program. Okay. And Max Pollock and Fremantle, the company that I was with, was actually the first company in South Africa to use a computer, which they did. And there's a reason for it, because IBM were in French House. And that's where Max Pollock's offices were in Ferreira Town, you know, which is close to the whole Hollard Street Stock Exchange. Yeah. So there was a natural affinity. So we were pioneers in computing, and I loved programming. And I did this course at WITS, which was kind of learning how to program in COBOL. And you know, I've always kept an interest. So. You know, for us, it was a massive development. I missed the floor, and we can go on forever talking about stories about the fun of being on the floor. But today's markets are 100, 1,000 times more efficient than those markets that we used to have. But, you know, they were romantic. The dealing on the floor was romantic. That's what movies were made of. You know, you can't really make a movie of me sitting behind the desk here or sitting here plonked, you know, trying to understand the market, because nothing happens the whole day. You're just looking at the screen.
Exactly. You know? Yeah. No, there's no that energy that you get on a busy trading floor when tickets and yellow sticky papers are flying everywhere, you know, and people are screaming. Yeah. No, absolutely. Yeah, no, that's sure. I mean, I miss
the. People say it's like a boarding school. It wasn't. It was like a primary school playground. You know, that was the mentality of the dealers. You know, the humor.
Yeah, well, I mean, you know, when we started in, well, I was at Fleming Martin for a year or two, and still in that JSE building in Diagonal Street, and yeah, I mean, the Red Room at the bottom, and the Bulls and Bears restaurant there. I started literally just after the floor closed, and yeah, I mean, some of those lunches and the nostalgia and all the dealers just hankering after the floor, you know.
The one thing I missed, and I think I wrote it in an article, or I said it in my seminar, was that when things were gloomy, you were never alone.
Yeah.
You know, when our market started to drop here in January, you sit here by the screen, you say, who can I cry to? Who can I vent? You know, I'm all by myself. But there, you know what would happen? You'd all get together, you'd go to an Italian restaurant, have a glass of wine. A lot of chaps went to Capitane's. You remember Capitane's?
Yes.
Where in near Diagonal Street, well known for its curries. I couldn't handle curries, but there was you never felt alone. Yeah. You know, you always had someone to talk to who would take you through the bad times, and I think that really identifies or characterizes, you know, what the floor was about. But here you're on your own. Market falls, well, you just see red on your screen, you know.
Yeah, no, absolutely, and especially in COVID, with everybody being a little bit more isolated as well, it can feel very lonely at times. And so, David, I was listening to your interview that you did for Sasfin, and it was a wonderful tribute to you. But what came out really strongly for me out of that was that you're a really big believer in investing in growth assets. And I think the parallels between you and Nigel, my father, who started Harvard House, is remarkable in terms of that inflationary period in the 70s and persuading people to invest in growth assets and seeing their savings being decimated. Yeah. So, I mean, most people, a lot of professionals, as we were talking a moment ago, haven't really lived through a period of high inflation, and we can debate whether we're going back there in the next couple of years. But what advice can you give to investors to cope with the return of inflation over your career?
You know, exactly what I said. We do the wrong thing. Whenever we see inflation, we start to see markets like just shudder a little bit. We run out into cash. And the worst thing that you can ever do is hold cash. And I only realized this years after the issue. So after living through the 70s and seeing what was happening, it is only when I met those people who were perceived to have money back in the 70s, when I met them in the 80s and later, did I realize how little they had. At the time, in nominal terms, they had a lot of money. Yeah. And that got me thinking, hold on, they got this completely wrong. And when I looked at how markets performed, you realize they were silly not to reinvest all the money they sold out for their businesses. And that got me thinking, and there are a lot of stories that came after that. Well, how do you choose a good company? You can't just go into the market. You've got to be able to go into quality assets. And that became the science. How do you select a company? What do you look for in businesses that you know are going to endure? And there are a lot of signs, that we can go on to. I think we can go into more than one seminar as to what makes a good company, but you don't see it overnight. It's not something that glares you in the face. It's like, oh, this is a great business. As a lot of kids do, they say, here's a lovely product. Yeah. My youngster's using it. It's a tech product. It's got to have that enduring quality, and that takes time. And to understand management takes time. I relate it to a love affair, to meeting a partner, to meeting your wife. You don't propose on the first date. You get to know her, and it takes a long time.
You seldom
when you're married.
Yeah, no, exactly.
But you know what I mean? Even when you're married, you don't know whether your marriage is going to be successful. It takes a long time, and that's the market. Immense patience. And constantly reviewing where you are and have you done the right thing.
Yeah, and I think
we're very impatient. Kids just want to trade, make money straight away. It's not like that.
No, I think that's such good advice. Yeah, I mean, it's you've been in the market for 50 years and you're still learning. We've been in the market for 27, 28 years, and we've got some new employees, and one of our opening advice to them was, it takes years and years to learn about the market and learn what's going on and learn what companies do and how they ebb and flow, so yeah, you can't really, there's not a real substitute for time in the market and just understanding the ebb and flow of companies over time. So that's such good advice. And David,
to teach people how to relate, especially in your business, in our business. They come in there and the first thing they want to do is show off with their charts and their PowerPoint presentations. They don't know how to. You've got to learn to build trust, and particularly in your business, our businesses. The trust takes time to build. Everybody wants to do things straight away now. Anyway, I'm interfering with.
No, absolutely. I think that's 100% right. David, I mean, as I mentioned in my introduction, I mean, you had a huge influence on my career in the early days. We were obviously a client of yours when I worked in Joburg. But I mean, looking back, you must have had an influence on so many people over the years, colleagues and clients, and in terms of your your advice to clients and helping families and people grow to achieve their financial goals. Do you look back on a very satisfying career? I mean, are there memorable moments from that point of view? Just do you feel that you've made a difference?
No, you don't know that you've made a difference.
But that's humble.
No, I mean that. And I learned, and I think this was from family, from my mother, from an uncle of mine who spent most of his years in a charitable organization, or what was it was called the Jewish, the Hebrew Kadisha, which was a burial society, but it was more looking after people. And he was a wonderful man. When people came in, when people were down and out and they asked for 100 Rand, he'd always give them 200 Rand. He was that kind of a person, and what I have learned is that always treat people with respect. I'm surprised because when journalists used to come in, I would never shove them away. I'd always give them time and try and explain issues, and Feral Hafferty always recalls when she first came to me. We were in the Diagonal Street, and she came to see me. She came in a T-shirt, which was obviously an activist T-shirt, trying to upset me and to get. And I laughed at her. I smiled at her and just carried on, and carried on explaining. She said, there's not enough empowerment, and then I said, hold on a sec. In government, every government every government pension fund has many, many black shareholders. So don't say they're not involved. Just little issues like
Exactly,
that.
yeah.
And years later, when she wrote in the book, I found that I never knew I was interviewing her or she was interviewing me. And it's those kind of stories. Always remember those things. And the other thing, Michael, very important. If a person comes to me to this day with a few thousand rand, for that person, it's very important.
Yeah.
And we will treat them with the same respect as a person with 10, 15, 20 million. Because to that person, that's all he or she has got. And there's always a solution. And suddenly you find many, many years later, they remember that.
Yeah.
I never reject anybody. No matter how humble you are or how little you think you have, we will always find you an investment solution.
Sure, I think that's so profound, and that's such wise words of wisdom. David, just to sort of wrap up, it's been wonderful to chat to you. Markets is more of a hobby than a career. I think we all appreciate that. Markets never sleep. We never sleep. Where to from here? What do the next 10, 20 years hold for you?
Very exciting. Seriously.
Great.
Very, very exciting. I think we're going into what I think is a decade of massive fixed investment. I don't want to say investment because people misunderstand it. Yeah. So I use the word fixed investment because a lot of it is going to be technological investment, but that's still fixed investment. I
Absolutely.
think when you understand where we're going into, I think certainly the last decade might have been a bit slow, 10 to 20, social media. But I think if you look, first of all, whether you like it or not, we're going into renewable energy, and there's a massive shift there. It's going to happen. It's staring you in the face. And then the whole digitization, Harvard House, or everybody else, we all manage accounts and that, and everything's going cloud, everything's going digital, and we have to transform with that. And the same thing, people want to buy electric cars. That's a transformative industry. It's going to transform industries.
Exactly.
Businesses are going robotic. So all of these are big themes that are staring us in the face. So you don't have to worry about short-term inflation or all the noise that we're hearing on the market. Just go for those businesses. Start to identify those companies that are going to benefit from what I think are overwhelming themes. So I think it's a very exciting decade ahead of us.
Well, David, that's fantastic. I mean, we just want to congratulate you on your career. It's been a wonderful career, and it's certainly not over. We wish you all the best, and we hope that we'll come across you again, in various platforms up in Joburg.
I think it's a bit snoop on you. You last invited me in 2010. It's now 2012. So whenever I used to look at the presentation, I said, what did I do wrong that I've never been invited back again?
Okay, well, I'm going to invite you for a beer next time I'm in Joburg. How's that? That's maybe better. But we really appreciate you just sharing your time with us, your insights, and your wisdom. And we look forward to following your career with great interest. And thank you for that. Take care.
My pleasure. Thanks, Michael. Thanks so much.
What a wonderful interview with an industry great. And it's really a great privilege that we were able to connect to David the day before he flew out to New York, and that he was prepared to give us some time. And just you can see just what a wonderful, humble man he is. I'm joined by Pete Smith, the CEO of the Harvard House Group, and I'm going to be talking to him a little bit more shortly. He's live in person, not pre-recorded. Thanks for joining us, Pete. And but in the meantime, we're just going to fly to video more around the future of Harvard House, and then I'm going to talk to Pete about that. Thank you, Claire.
My name is Nigel Porter. I'm a director of the company. I'm the Chief Investment Officer responsible for the asset management team. For me, it comes down to the fact that we have been around for 50 years in a small town. We have partnered with people, we've supported them, we've grown with them, we've built their trust, and we've delivered over a long period of time. I think in a small town, if you don't deliver on your core promise, you get hounded out of town. So I would say to people that Harvard House survived the test of time. We remain core and true to our core principles that we've always held dear in terms of a very personal service. I think the biggest risk facing the business today is changing demographics. A lot of people immigrating from South Africa, and an economy that isn't growing, that is essentially shrinking the savings pool, not allowing people to save. So as opposed to building up savings, people are drawing down on savings. People are immigrating, which is reducing the amount, the number of clients available. Those are probably our biggest challenges.
My name is Robin Gibson. I'm the marketing director of Harvard House, but I work into multiple aspects of the company. I think by nature we are optimistic about the future. We believe the world will develop, that South Africa has a future, an exciting future, that we have an opportunity to service more and more clients with a new unique approach. And we really believe that the opportunity to make a difference for more and more people and provide opportunities to employ people and grow careers is available to us into the future. So we're excited about the future. Bitcoin and technological advancement are things that are disrupting existing industries. And I often apply my mind to the idea of how are we going to be disrupted in the investment industry. Things actually in the investment industry don't change. It will still be about investing in companies that make profits and pay dividends. The kind of company we invest in might change. So it might look very different. It might be selling electric cars instead of horse feed. That's what time changes. But the principles of business don't change. So ultimately, investment is about finding the value, finding the company that's going to grow into the future, and backing the management to do that for our clients. What we really try and do for our clients is to be that beacon of hope and really trying to remind them that life might not look the same going forward, but it's certainly going to go on, and we all have to, eat, live, get educated, do all the things that day-to-day requires of us. So we try to keep them focused on that. I think if you came back here in 10 years' time, other than finding those who you're videoing a lot older, balder and wrinkled, and maybe even put out to pasture, I hope that you would find a team of young, energized people who would have the same heart for impacting the community in terms of building financial fitness and wealth, and really impacting a wider set of the community, and really having an impact into a wider demographic in South Africa as well as we change as a country, that we can start to assist emerging families to build wealth, like we've got long-term families now who are with us in their third generation.
Well, I think you may have had a few slow moments in that video. It would appear that everyone is jumping onto Netflix for the evening, so the internet seems a little bit slower. So apologies for that. But I want to pick up with Pete now and just talk a little bit about Harvard House into the future. Just to position Pete joined Harvard House from PricewaterhouseCoopers as an accountant and ran an accounting book for many years. And eventually we got to the point that as partners, we saw what Pete did for his clients and how he really thought about their businesses. And we thought the best thing we could do was invest in releasing someone to put time into us as a business. And so we released Pete to CEO and asked him to focus on us, to spend his night thinking about us rather than clients. And we've never regretted that decision. Sometimes we wonder on the questions he asks us, because Pete has an incredible ability to ask the question you don't want him to ask. Thank you, Pete. But here's my opportunity to ask him some questions maybe he doesn't want. So he's my victim and it's live, so there's not much he can do. But Pete, we've just watched those videos and we've seen the history that Nigel talked about, the personal service, how the business was built. So can you maybe talk about how the firm is going to go forward, building on the last 50 years as building blocks? Maybe give us some of your thoughts of where you're headed.
Thanks, Rob.
So I think really critical to us today is our foundation, which we have 50 years to build on. And I think really what's exciting is that our values remain the same values which Nigel founded the business on: very personalized service, excellence, integrity. And those values are really part of our DNA today. Our team own those values, and it's really important that we all have them. So I think that's a great building block. I think the other benefit of 50 years is we have a great opportunity to look back and to evaluate the things that we've done really well, and the things we haven't really succeeded in, or where we've slipped up. And it's been a good opportunity as we celebrated to do that, to look back and reflect and to see how we want to build going forward. I think just one really important thing that was mentioned in one of the videos that we watched tonight was Melanie being interviewed, where she spoke about Ron Herbert joining the practice, and just how it absolutely blossomed when Ron joined Nigel, and he had different characteristics, different skills, different personality traits, and how the two of them worked so well together. And I think we've seen over 50 years that the team has built up from 2 and Mel working for free to a team of 65. We've seen the power of team, of that multiplied, the benefit of everyone working together, networking together to give clients better solutions and very personalized solutions. And so I think that's one of the critical things we've learned. We've seen the power of team. And so going forward, we definitely want to continue to build a team of diverse individuals, diverse characteristics and personality traits, and that we can continue to build and work together to find really unique solutions based on our values and with our vision and mission very intact.
Awesome. So Pete, we have almost 70 clients joined tonight, and we're really excited that you guys have come through and connect. What sort of message would you like to convey to our clients for the years that have gone and for the years that are ahead?
Well, firstly, just to thank all of you, and firstly for joining us tonight, but in addition to all our clients for loyal support. We would have no business today if it wasn't for you and your loyal support. And so we're so grateful to you and value you so much. And to be honest, Nigel's heart was to help people. I think David Shapiro had the same value coming through. And I think the team today have the same heart. The people that work for Harvard House, that are part of our team, have a heart for people. And our desire going forward is to understand each person's unique and individual needs, and to build solutions to meet those unique and individual needs.
Pete, would you just, in terms of meeting those needs, do you see that there's a disconnect between people going forward and technology? How does technology and people in this industry and with those values outwork, do you think?
So Rob, just looking forward, there's no doubt that things like technology, and it's not only technology, I think things are going to change going forward. Demographics are going to change. Society's needs are going to change as society evolves. And I think we as a firm have to be very aware of the need to be able to pivot our strategy, to adapt to changing needs. But the one thing that will never change in our mind is that people will always be unique individuals, and people always want to connect and be heard and understood. And so for us, building a team of people that can understand needs is going to be the most critical thing going forward, that we continue to connect one-on-one in spite of all those other things. We need to obviously embrace technology and embrace change, but we need to continue to grow our understanding of people and how to connect and build trust.
Yeah, I think that's the heart of the firm. It's really about people. So that's bringing us to the end of our presentation. Before we do go, you might be sitting there wondering why I'm in a top hat and dressed like this. Of course, every class must have a class clown. You've probably worked out by now that that's me. We have had a number of events. On the 1st of February, we celebrated as a staff and with clients who came and shared a coffee and a cupcake with us. We had a cocktail party with our staff and their spouses, and we celebrated with a very small handful of clients who were there in the very first year with Nigel, and Nigel and Mel were part of that. Last night we had a bowls day here in Howick that came close to being rained out, but actually ended up being a roaring success. Tonight we have this online presentation. Tomorrow we have a golf day, and both of those, the bowls day and the golf day, have really been an opportunity to celebrate our birthday and put back into charity. So we have supported hospice last night. Tomorrow we support Singakwenza, the organization we mentioned earlier, and the ladies from Singakwenza are online, and we're proud to be associated with them. And then Love Howick, who's done incredible work in working into Howick and dealing with a number of social issues in here. And it's great to be able to put back into the community that supports us. And so one way to make it memorable is to make sure that someone is dressed in a memorable way. So these colors are the Harvard House colors. This is a set of tails. They did take my whip away on the 1st, so I'm not allowed to use that. But we've had a great time celebrating, and we are delighted that you've been joined us online. We hope that you'll enjoy using those goodies and you'll think about this. And we're committed to building this organization so that a group beyond us will celebrate a centenary when we're not here. And so we're still building for the next 50 years. And we hope that you will continue and journey with us on the ride. So thank you for joining us this evening, and God bless you and go well. Thank you very much for your time. Thank you. Good night.